The summer heat hung heavy over Oklahoma City, the kind that made your shirt stick to your back before noon. The backyard of my parents' modest ranch-style home buzzed with the usual 4th of July chaos. Kids chasing each other with sparklers, my cousins arguing over the last slice of watermelon, and my dad, Tom, holding court by the grill with a cold Bud Light in hand. He clinked his bottle against my Uncle Ray's, his voice carrying over the chatter. "Internet nonsense of yours, Nate. It's never going to be real money." The laughter that followed hit like a punch I'd learned to dodge years ago. My name's Nate Harper, I'm 27, and for the last 6 years I've been grinding away in a shoebox apartment downtown, building blockchain solutions that could change how the world handles money. Not that my family got it. To them, I was the oddball kid who'd rather stare at a screen than join the real world. Every family barbecue played out the same, polite questions about when I'd get a steady job, followed by crypto jokes that weren't even clever the first time. I'd smile, sip my soda, and let it slide. But today I was carrying a secret heavier than the Oklahoma humidity. Yesterday, a tech firm out of Silicon Valley had sent me their final offer, $27,500,000, 0 cents, for my blockchain protocol. 6 years of late nights, cheap pizza, and debugging code in the dark had paid off in a way I'd barely dreamed of. "You know, son," Dad said, leaning in so only I could hear, "Mike's always hiring at the Ford dealership, good benefits too." His voice had that mix of concern and pity I'd heard 1,000 times. I nodded, watching my brother-in-law Mike across the yard showing off a shiny new Rolex he'd bought with his latest sales commission. He caught my eye and flashed that sympathetic grin like he was sorry for me. I wasn't buying it. Driving home that night, my phone lit up with a text from my sister Lauren. "Don't let Dad get to you. He's just worried." I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat of my beat-up Chevy and kept driving. They didn't know about the deal, and I wasn't ready to tell them. Not yet. Back in my apartment, I checked my laptop one last time. The wire transfer was pending. By Monday, I'd have more money than everyone at that barbecue combined. I shut the laptop and stared out my window at the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt something close to calm. I wasn't always the guy chasing digital dreams. When I was 14, I taught myself to code on a clunky Dell my mom, Diane, picked up at a garage sale. I'd stay up past midnight, my bedroom glowing with the faint blue of the screen, learning Python and C++, while my parents thought I was just playing games. "He'll grow out of it," they'd tell my aunts and uncles. When they asked why I was always locked in my room, they figured it was like my short-lived obsession with skateboarding or collecting baseball cards. But coding wasn't a phase. It was the first thing that made sense in a world that felt too small for what I wanted. High school came and went. I graduated with decent grades and a partial scholarship to Oklahoma State, where I majored in computer science. Everyone, my parents, my guidance counselor, even Lauren, expected me to follow the usual path. Intern at some tech company, land an entry-level coding gig, maybe climb the ladder at a place like IBM. But in my junior year, I stumbled across a white paper on blockchain. It was like a lightning bolt, decentralized systems, cutting out middlemen, building trust through math. It wasn't just tech, it was a revolution. I dropped out that spring to build something real. My dad didn't speak to me for 3 months. Mom cried for a week. Lauren tried to play peacemaker, but even she stopped defending me at family dinners. "I just don't get it, Nate," Dad said when he finally broke the silence. "My dad worked the oil rigs for 40 years so we could have a shot at college. And you're throwing it away for what, some computer fad?" I tried explaining it once, talked about smart contracts, secure transactions, the future of finance. Their eyes glazed over faster than you could say Bitcoin. So I stopped trying. I moved into my apartment, lived on energy drinks and takeout, and poured everything into my work. While my high school buddies were posting about their honeymoons or new SUVs, I was solving problems nobody else had cracked, building a protocol that could make crypto transactions faster and cheaper than ever. The first hint I was onto something came 9 months ago. I'd published a paper online about my protocol, expecting maybe a few nerds to read it. 3 days later, my inbox was flooded with emails from venture capitalists. One of them, Sarah from Apex Ventures, asked for a video call. "Your algorithm's a game changer, Nate," she said, her voice sharp with excitement. "Have you thought about what this could be worth?" I hadn't. I was just a guy trying to solve a puzzle. But the offers started rolling in. First, $2 million, 0 cents. I said no. Then $7 million, 0 cents. I said no again. Lauren called around that time, her voice tight. Dad's got some heart issues, nothing major yet, but he might need surgery soon. I asked if they needed cash. She paused, then said, "We'll manage." That night, I stared at a $12 million, 0 cents offer in my inbox and felt a hollow ache. What was the point of building something huge if I couldn't fix the problems right in front of me? 2 days before the barbecue, I sat in a virtual meeting with 5 execs from the Silicon Valley firm. After months of negotiations, they'd made their final pitch. $27,500,000, 0 cents, plus a 2-year consulting gig paying $200,000, 0 cents a year. "We need your answer today, Mr. Harper," the CEO said, his voice smooth as a car salesman's. I asked for an hour, then walked around my neighborhood. Kids rode bikes in the street, dads fired up grills. It was the kind of normal life my parents wanted for me. Visible, predictable, something they could brag about at church. Back in my apartment, I signed the contract. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, I felt empty. 6 years of work, millions in the bank, and nobody to share it with who'd get what it meant. At the barbecue, watching my family laugh about internet money, I realized they weren't laughing because they didn't care. They just couldn't see what I saw. Their world was paychecks, pensions, and tangible things like Mike's Rolex or my cousin Jake's new promotion at the bank. I thought about showing them the email on my phone, the one confirming the deal, but when Dad handed me another soda and gave me that half-proud, half-worried pat on the back, I kept quiet. This wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about something bigger, something I was only starting to figure out. That night, I pulled over at a lookout point above the city. Oklahoma City sparkled below, a grid of lights like the circuits I'd spent years studying. I opened my banking app and set up a private account. Then I made a list: Mom and Dad, Lauren, her daughter Sophie, Uncle Ray, who'd been laid off last year, even Mike, who didn't deserve it. I knew what I was going to do, and I'd make damn sure none of them knew it was me. The money wasn't just mine. It was a chance to rewrite what my family thought was possible, and I was just getting started. The Oklahoma City skyline faded into the rearview mirror as I drove back to my apartment, the weight of my secret settling deeper with every mile. That 4th of July barbecue had been a turning point, not because I'd told my family about the $27,500,000, 0 cents deal, but because I hadn't. The decision I'd made at the lookout point, staring down at the city's flickering lights, was burning a hole in my conscience. I wasn't just Nate Harper, the kid who'd rather code than grill burgers with Dad. I was the guy who'd quietly changed the game and nobody knew it. Not my parents, not my sister Lauren, not even Mike, with his smug Rolex and pitying glances. But keeping it quiet was only step 1. Step 2 was figuring out how to use that money to fix things without anyone catching on. The weeks after the barbecue blurred into a frenzy of late-night planning. I met with a financial advisor named Claire, a sharp woman in a downtown office who specialized in what she called discreet wealth. Most guys your age would be buying Lambos and penthouses, she said, eyeing my faded jeans and scuffed sneakers. "You're different," I shrugged. "I don't need a splash." We set up anonymous trusts and grants, funneling money to cover Dad's heart surgery, a full-ride scholarship for my niece Sophie's future, and the back taxes on Grandpa's old farm, which my family had been fighting to save for years. Every transfer felt like a chess move, calculated, precise, and invisible. Lauren called me one night, her voice shaky. "Nate, you won't believe this. Some foundation's covering Dad's entire surgery, and Sophie got a scholarship out of nowhere." I played dumb. "That's incredible, sis. Guess luck's on your side." She laughed, but there was a pause, like she was trying to piece something together. I hung up, my heart racing. The game was working, but it was riskier than I'd thought. By October, the wire transfer had cleared, and my bank account looked like something out of a movie. $27,500,000, 0 cents, with a consulting gig that pushed it closer to $30, 0 cents, mil by year's end. I still drove my rusty Chevy, still lived in my cramped apartment with its flickering kitchen light, but the secret was starting to feel like a second skin, one I wasn't sure I could keep wearing. Then Lauren called with an idea that changed everything. "Sophie's school is hosting a career day," she said, They need speakers. I told them you're a developer. You in?" Her tone had an edge, like she knew more than she was letting on. I hesitated. Talking to a room full of middle schoolers about coding was one thing. Facing my parents, who'd be there to support Sophie, was another. "Sure," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll do it." Career Day fell on a crisp November morning, 6 months to the day since I'd signed the deal. Sophie's school, a squat brick building in the suburbs, was packed with parents, teachers, and kids buzzing with energy. I wore my usual jeans, a faded hoodie, sneakers that had seen better days. Nobody would have guessed I was worth more than the school's entire budget. Lauren met me at the entrance, Sophie bouncing beside her. "Uncle Nate, you're gonna crush it," Sophie said, her braces glinting as she grinned. My parents were already in the auditorium, Dad in his favorite flannel, Mom clutching a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. Mike was there too, his suit screaming, "Top salesman." He gave me a nod, but his eyes said he still thought I was a lost cause. The auditorium was a sea of bored 12-year-olds and overly enthusiastic parents. I was the last speaker, slotted after a firefighter and a dentist. The principal introduced me as Nathan Harper, software developer, and I could feel Dad's gaze, heavy with that familiar mix of hope and doubt. I stepped to the podium, my hands sweaty, and started simple. 6 years ago, I dropped out of college to work on something nobody understood. My family thought I was crazy. I glanced at Mom and Dad. Mom smiled nervously. Dad's face was unreadable. I was building a blockchain protocol. Think of it as a super secure way to move money online. Most days, I didn't know if it'd work. I lived on cheap pizza, missed family parties, and heard a lot of jokes about my fake internet money. A few kids snickered, but the adults were locked in, like they sensed something coming. I took a breath, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape. 6 months ago, I sold that protocol for $27,500,000, 0 cents. The room went dead silent. A kid dropped his pencil and it echoed like a gunshot. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's jaw hit the floor. Mike's eyes bugged out, his Rolex suddenly looking like a thrift store knockoff. Sophie's mouth formed a perfect O. I kept going, my voice steady now. But that's not the point. The point is, success doesn't always look like what people expect. Sometimes, the guy in the old hoodie, driving a car older than you are, is building something that changes the world. The auditorium erupted, kids cheering, parents whispering, teachers scrambling to process what I'd said. I stepped off the stage and Sophie tackled me with a hug. "That was epic, Uncle Nate." Lauren was next, her eyes wet. "You jerk," she whispered, laughing. "You didn't tell me it was that much." My parents approached slower, like they were walking through a dream. Dad's voice was hoarse. $27,500,000, 0 cents. "Nate, is that real?" I nodded, closer to $30 million, 0 cents now with bonuses. Mom started sobbing, pulling me into a hug. Dad just stared, his flannel shirt suddenly looking too big for him. Mike shook my hand, his grip tight. "I knew you were up to something," he said. But his laugh was nervous, like he'd just realized he'd been outplayed. The drive home was quiet, but my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts from Lauren, Dad's freaking out in a good way. From Mike, "Man, I owe you a beer, or 10. Even Mom, "We need to talk, Nathan, we're so proud." But it was the voicemail from Dad that hit hardest. "Son, I didn't see it, what you were doing. I'm sorry, call me." I played it twice, my throat tight. For years I'd wanted him to get it to see past the real job, lectures, and trust I knew what I was doing. Now he was starting to, but it wasn't just about the money, it was about me. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop. An email from Claire waited. Another trust had gone through, this one covering Sophie's orthodontist bills. I smiled, but the high from Career Day was fading. I'd dropped the truth like a bomb, and it had shaken my family to the core. But what came next? Dad's apology was a start, but years of doubt didn't vanish in a day. Lauren was already asking questions about the random grants popping up. Mike, for all his salesman charm, was sharp enough to smell a rat. And then there was the farm, Grandpa's land, saved by a mystery donor. I knew they'd never trace back to me. Or would they? I leaned back, staring at the city lights through my window. The secret had been my shield, letting me help without begging for credit. But today I'd cracked that shield wide open. My family was starting to see me, Not just the dropout, not just the crypto kid, but the guy who'd built something real. The question was, could they handle the rest of the truth? Because I wasn't done. The trusts were just the beginning. I had plans, big ones, to pull my family out of every financial hole they'd ever faced, to give Sophie a future without limits, to make sure Dad never worried about medical bills again. But if they figured out it was me, would it change everything? Would they see a hero, or just a guy trying to buy their respect? My phone buzzed again. Another email, this time from Sarah at Apex Ventures. Nate, your protocol's outperforming projections. They're talking a $10 million 0 cents bonus. Call me. I shut the laptop, my pulse racing. The stakes were higher now and the clock was ticking. I'd shown my hand at career day, but the real game was just starting. And if I played it right, my family wouldn't just respect me. They'd see a future I'd been building all along, one block at a time. The echo of my career day bombshell still hung in the air as I drove away from Sophie's school, the Oklahoma City sunset painting the sky in streaks of fire. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from Lauren, a stunned voicemail from Dad, even a grudging "damn man" from Mike. I'd ripped the veil off my secret, laying bare the $27,500,000 0 cents truth to a room full of wide-eyed kids and my shell-shocked family. But as the adrenaline faded, a new question gnawed at me. What now? I'd spent years building a blockchain empire in the shadows, proving I could succeed on my terms. But success wasn't just about money, it was about what came next, about mending the cracks in my family that had deepened with every get-a-real-job jab. The game wasn't over, it was evolving, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Back in my apartment, I stared at the city lights, my laptop glowing with Claire's latest email. Another anonymous trust had cleared, this one paying off Uncle Ray's mortgage. I'd been playing financial guardian angel for months. Dad's heart surgery, Sophie's scholarship, Grandpa's farm, all funded by mystery donors. I'd carefully hidden behind layers of paperwork. But career day had changed the rules. My family wasn't just curious now, they were suspicious. Lauren's text hinted at it. Nate, that farm thing, was that you? Mike, ever the salesman, had cornered me after my speech, his eyes sharp. Nobody just stumbles into $30 0 cents mil. What else you hiding? Even Dad's voicemail, raw with apology, carried a question he hadn't asked outright. How much have you been carrying alone? I wasn't ready to spill everything, not yet, but I couldn't keep them in the dark forever. The next morning I met Claire at her sleek downtown office, the kind of place that screamed money without trying. Your family's starting to connect the dots, she said, sliding a tablet across her desk with my latest trust reports. The farm, the medical grants, Sophie's braces. It's a pattern, Nate. You can't stay invisible much longer. I leaned back, my sneakers scuffing the polished floor. I didn't do it for credit, I just wanted them to be okay. Claire's smile was knowing. And they are. But money like yours doesn't just fix problems. It changes people. You ready for that? I didn't answer. The truth was, I wasn't sure. I'd spent years dodging Dad's disappointment, Mom's worry, Lauren's mediation. What would happen when they realized I'd been rewriting their lives from behind a keyboard? That question followed me to Lauren's house a week later. She'd invited me over for dinner, but her text had a cryptic edge. We need to talk. Bring your brain. When I arrived, Sophie greeted me with a flying hug, her braces gleaming. Uncle Nate, you're like a superhero. Lauren shooed her to finish her homework, then handed me a beer. Superhero what? She said, her eyes searching mine. Care to explain why every crisis in this family magically disappears lately? I froze, the bottle halfway to my lips. Just lucky, I guess. She didn't buy it. Nate, I'm not stupid. The farm taxes, Dad's surgery, Sophie's school, nobody's that lucky. I sighed, knowing the wall I'd built was crumbling. Okay, I said. It's me. But I need you to keep it quiet, for now. Her jaw dropped, but before she could grill me, the doorbell rang. Dad and Mom walked in, and the air shifted. This wasn't just dinner, it was an ambush. We sat around Lauren's dining table, the smell of her famous chili filling the room. Dad was quieter than usual, his flannel shirt pressed, like he'd made an effort. Mom kept glancing at me, her coffee mug a nervous prop. After Sophie was sent to bed, Lauren cleared her throat. Nate has something to tell you guys. I shot her a look. Traitor, but she just raised an eyebrow. No backing out now. I took a breath, my heart hammering. The stuff I said at career day, it's not the whole story. I've been helping out. The farm, your surgeries, Sophie's braces, those weren't random. I set up trusts, anonymous ones, to take care of you. The silence was deafening. Mom's eyes welled up. Dad's fork stopped mid-air. You? He said, his voice rough. All of it? I nodded. I didn't want it to be about me, I saw you struggling, and I could fix it. Mom reached for my hand, tears spilling. Nate, why didn't you say anything? Dad's face was a storm. Shock, guilt, something softer I couldn't name. You've been carrying this alone? He asked. I shrugged, the weight of years pressing down. You didn't believe in what I was doing. I figured it was easier this way. His jaw tightened, and for a second I thought he'd argue, but then he stood, walked around the table, and pulled me into a hug. The kind he hadn't given me since I was a kid. I was wrong, he said, his voice breaking. I didn't see you, son. Not really. The room blurred as I hugged him back, the knot in my chest loosening for the first time in years. Over the next hour, I laid it all out. The blockchain protocol, the $27,500,000 0 cents deal, the consulting bonuses pushing me toward $40 million 0 cents. Lauren laughed through tears. You were eating ramen while bankrolling us? Mom shook her head, still processing. Dad asked halting questions about crypto, his brow furrowed like he was solving a puzzle. So it's like digital cash, but safer. I nodded, and for the first time, he didn't look skeptical. He looked proud. As we cleared the dishes, Lauren pulled me aside. You've changed everything, Nate, but you're not done, are you? I smiled. Not even close. The weeks that followed were a quiet revolution. Dad started reading about blockchain, texting me articles with typos like Bitcoin and blockchain. Mom invited me to Sunday dinners, where she'd ask about my work like it was a real job. Even Mike, who showed up to one dinner with a humbled grin, admitted he'd signed up for a coding boot camp. Figure I should keep up with a superhero, he said, and I laughed, realizing I didn't hate him anymore. I bought my parents a new house, a cozy one-story near Lauren, no stairs for Dad's bad knee, through the trust. But this time, they knew it was me. Still don't get what you invented, Dad said as we unpacked boxes in his new garage, but I'm learning. I clapped his shoulder. That's enough for me. One night, as we gathered on their new patio, Sophie teaching Mom how to use a crypto app, Lauren running her new accounting firm with my seed money, and Dad grilling burgers like nothing had changed, I slipped away to the yard's edge. The Tulsa skyline glowed in the distance, a reminder of the world I'd built and the one I was rebuilding. My phone buzzed. An email from Sarah at Apex Ventures. Your protocol's scaling globally. They're offering $15 million, 0 cents more. Call me. I pocketed the phone, my eyes on the stars. The money didn't matter as much anymore. What mattered was this, my family, laughing together, seeing me not as the dropout or the crypto kid, but as the guy who'd never given up. Dad joined me, a beer in hand. Your grandpa would have loved this, he said, nodding toward the house. Not the money, the grit. You got that from him. I swallowed hard. I got it from you too. He put an arm around me, the gesture easy now. Come back inside. Your mom's trying to buy Dogecoin and I need backup. I laughed, following him to the light. The path I'd chosen, coding in the dark, betting on a future nobody saw, hadn't just paid off. It had brought us here, to a place where success wasn't about proving them wrong, but showing them what was possible. And as the night stretched on, I knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning.